Welcome back to Stellaris for Beginners. Whether or not you are brand new to the game and you have no idea what you're doing, or you are a seasoned veteran with over 2,000 hours in the game itself, well, there's always new stuff to learn, which is exactly what we're going to be doing today. We're going to create our very first species. That's right, in the past I have said very often that you should probably start off with one of the standard factions first, like the United Nations of Earth or the Commonwealth of Man, etc, etc, etc. But as you can see on the screen right now, I've got a lot of custom races available, and that's something that we are going to be building today, so very exciting indeed. Please be aware we are playing with all the expansions enabled here, so if you are missing some of this stuff, please be aware that it could be locked behind some of the expansions. We'll go over them individually as we go throughout the system, but for those of you who like to roleplay, get ready to see the screen more than you will see your family in the very near future, because we're going to be spending quite a lot of time here, because that clay doesn't mold itself, so to speak. Let's dive right in, shall we? Let's hit the create new button and create something. Creating a species by itself is relatively easy. You just mold that clay, like I mentioned, and just shape something. And of course, we have to start off with the appearance of said clay. We have all of these things here in the list, and whether or not you've got all the expansions, some of these may not pop up. For instance, if you don't have machine, then you most likely don't have synthetic dawn. The same thing applies to plantoids, which has its own pack, and lithoids, which also has its own pack. There's a couple of more on humanoids as well, but there is no need to dwell too much on that. Porter packs are exactly that. They're portraits. They don't have any impact on the game whatsoever. If you have, for instance, synthetic dawn, then you can easily just go with the default robot face right here if you really wanted to, and this one won't pop up, for instance, unless you have lithoids, etc, etc, etc. What are we going to pick today, we shall say? Well, of course, we're going to go ahead and have to pick the wonderful dwarf humanoid, because it is in fact glorious. Of course, we can go for the other D&D species, which is the orc. Good times. Alright, next tab. Species. Does it matter? No, it does not. The name does not matter at all unless you're into your RP. Oh boy, we can just go through and roll the randomized name and put our biography there. Oh look, the biography is already pre-filled for this particular species. How nice. I do like that biography. That is a good one. But yeah, the name of your species, if you have two of them, what is it called? The plural of said species, and the adjective of such species. This only impacts what the game puts you on screen as well as when Xenos contact you and how you are presented. I think that's relatively straightforward, I feel. Yeah. Then we get the name lists, relatively straightforward as well. What your ship prefix is, as in what name is in front of every single ship that you build. You can have dozens of types of name lists. Again, do they matter? No. Is it hilarious? Absolutely. I particularly am keen on machine number 1, because Unit X1 and Unit X2, names that go down in the history. But then, of course, there's such genius like Unit B2. Man, you can't go without those guys. It's kind of awesome. Of course, there is multiple files on the Steam Workshop that allow you to get more name lists. So be sure to go and check that out if you want to see some more or create your own. It's actually not that difficult at all. Cool. We've gotten out of the way with all of the fancy fluff stuff. Let's talk traits. The first real meat and potatoes of the game. We've got machine selected for some reason, so we're going to go and take that one off. What is important here? Well, traits, as they say, is what makes the species grow. Well, that's actually not what they say, but you get the general idea. These are the main characteristics of our species that we can build. For instance, we can make agrarians. So every single modifier, every single trait gives you a bonus to something. So let's say we're agrarian, we get food in our jobs, plus 15%. Very nice if you're, for instance, in hive mind and you need a lot of food. Ingenious and energy credits. Industrious, minerals. Intelligent, which is probably one of the best one in the game, which gives you increased research, etc, etc, etc. There is a massive list down here, and even if you've never played the game before and you wonder what is trade value, then I highly recommend to actually go and play the game with one of the de facto standard species, as I already mentioned before. before. But for every positive, there is a negative. For instance, let's say that we want to be adaptive. It means that we can no longer pick non-adaptive at the bottom of the screen. In this case, adaptive means that we can colonize more planets, at least more planet types, because we will be able to live there a lot easier. However, we only have so many points. In this particular case, we only have 2 points to spend, and as you can see, next to every single trait there is a point value, which basically says, hey, this is how expensive this trait is. So for instance, if I want my species to be intelligent, I suddenly have 0 points left, but I can still pick 4 more traits, and this is where the min-maxing starts to come in. For instance, remember these negative traits I was talking about? Yeah, if you pick one of those, it means that you will be able to get more trait points. And that is kind of useful because it basically means that you can balance things out and say, okay, I don't want my species to be not growing all that quickly. Why would you ever pick this? I don't know. But you will get 2 more points you can spend on something else, such as adaptive, which means that we can now go onto more planets, even though we don't really grow all that fast. And we can get 2 more points here. So let's take a look here. Let's take slow learners, for instance, and we'll add strong on top of that. And now we're out of trait points. And yeah, we don't have any picks anymore as well. Is this a good layout? No, it's most definitely not. It's usually a good idea to go for either industrious or with the wonders of intelligence, and because of some changes in the 2.7 build, it's usually a good idea to go for unruly, because unruly increases empire sprawl from pops by 10%, and that may seem like a lot, but due to the wonders of the administrative buildings as well as the bureaucrats, we can offset that quite easily, which means that we get almost a free research bonus to almost everything, and then we still have 2 points left that we can spend on something else. I'm particularly keen on, say, for instance, anything with rapid breeders, because the faster we can grow our pops, the better, etc., etc. Once again, unruly, unless you build those clerk buildings, you're not going to get any bonuses out of it. So admin buildings are pretty important here. So you're going to have to build an entire planet for them. Until, of course, you get genetic engineering, and you just remove this trait entirely and just slap something else in there to balance things out. And once you get into genetic engineering, especially in the late game, if you have Utopia, you can go completely ham and just, wow, completely create a species from scratch yet again. Such a delight. Anyway, let's go to our home world, our home name and class. This is actually a lot more important than you think it would be, because, well, whilst the name by itself, that's cool. Yeah, no, the name, that's fine. And the starting solar system, they all have different solar systems with little changes in them, like the NEP system and the Sol system, Void Dwellers, which is nice, Shattered Ring, Void Dwellers, yada yada. What is really important here is what planet you start on. What is objectively a good planet? Now, from an RP point of view, from a role-playing point of view, you can be like, oh yeah, my dwarves, they live on this here alpine world because they live underground in these vast sprawling cities, etc., etc., etc. But it does have a lot more impact on the game than you would think. Dry worlds tend to have more energy on them, whereas wet worlds usually have more food on them, and frozen worlds usually have more minerals on them. And this is kind of a balance. There's different tiles different districts that can spawn on these worlds that can have bigger impact on what kind of districts are available. So for instance, frozen worlds tend to have more mineral districts on them, whereas dry worlds tend to have more energy districts on them. You can kind of balance things out. Overall, I like the ocean world because it's a nice balance between energy and food and minerals we can get from space anyway. And wet overall, the ocean world is a nice balance due to some special modifiers that you can get there, which is always nice. City appearance. Does it matter? Absolutely not. Does it look cool? Oh, yes, baby, it does. I'm perfectly keen on picking whatever here. Like, let's pick a reptilian civilians are cool. And then let's go to Origins. Now, Origins is a brand new addition to the 2.7 version of the game, 2.6 technically, because it's part of Federations, but it has wide application to almost every single game you play, and all of these Origins are sometimes locked behind expansions, except for a couple, like Prosperous Unification. It's part of vanilla. It's relatively straightforward. What else is part of vanilla? A couple more, but for instance, Mechanist is part of Utopia. Really cool, very much robot focused. Syncretic Evolution, oh boy, another screen just popped up. We can build ourselves a little secondary species if we wanted to, if we went with Origin. So Origins, what they are basically the background of your species, a guiding concept that can lead you into the future. They used to be part of the civic system. We will get into the civic system very shortly. And they've been now merged into Origins just so that you can have a little bit more flavor on your background. A lot of these are really cool. There's a video on the channel right now that will explain every single one of these, or at least there's multiple videos of them. Do you want to start on a ring world? Yeah, you can. You want to start on orbitals? You can. You want to start as a vassal from a fallen empire? Oh, yes, there is, and there's a whole bunch more. I personally like Doomsday quite a lot because it is a lot of fun. Basically what it means is your planet is going to explode, but that's part of Federation, sadly, so please be aware of that. In the meantime, we're going to go with Prosperous Unification. Also, please be aware that all of these Origins do have separate modifiers attached to them. Such, for instance, Prosperous Unification basically means that we will get additional pops and additional districts at the start of the game, and every single one of these, of course, have their own little bonuses attached to them, or a malus, depending on what you pick. Then we get to what is arguably the most important part of creating your species, and that is the government and ethics screen. Government and ethics is the guiding hand through the game and really defines what your species is like and what sort of hole you are pigeoned into. First of all, ethics. Ethics is the bonuses, effectively, that we want in the game, and they are represented by certain moral quandaries. Say we are militarists, right? So with militarists, our ship can go pew-pew a lot faster. It's very straightforward. But on the other side of the spectrum, there is pacifists, which means that we will get a less empire sprawl from pops, minus 30%. We are unruly, which means we get a bonus of plus 10% there, which balances off to plus 20%. You know where I'm going with this? There's a lot of synergies between traits and government ethics and civics in the game. There's a couple of really interesting ones that you can go and play around with. Then we, of course, have a xenophile, authoritarian, spiritualist, militarist, as we already spoke of, xenophobic, fanatic egalitarian, and materialist. But yeah, all of these have their own modifiers and a more extreme version. You've got the fanatic version and the normal version. The fanatic version usually gives more bonuses, but it sometimes kind of pigeonholes you about what you can actually do. And whatever you are up against, so for instance, once again, militarist versus pacifist, you can't pick one of each. You can only have one side of the spectrum. So for instance, if I am a militarist, I cannot be a pacifist, etc. And of course, if I am a xenophobe, I can be a xenophile, and that's kind of how the cookie crumbles. But the real gist here is that we have these here civics. Now, civics become available based on our ethics. So for instance, if we are going to go through the list here, and we got all of these cool options, and let's say that we want to be, what's one of the cool ones I say here? Technocracy, right? So technocracy, it gives us a special species bonus where it means that all of our capital buildings will replace administrator jobs with science directors, and we will get more unity due to our researchers. But we can only have this if we are fanatic materialists. So if I select this, the materialist item due to the selection, technocracy is now available, which is rather nice. So that's, for instance, an option. Another thing, if you want to go for something a little bit more special, let's say you want to play fanatic purifiers, you are going to need to play as a fanatic xenophobe, but also as a militarist or a spiritualist. So yeah, please be aware of that. So now we can play as fanatic purifiers. And all of these civics have their own little bonuses, and they're all fun in their own own way, so feel free to experiment with them. They are a good fun. Fanatic Purifiers, however, are locked behind Utopia, I believe. It is the expansion that you should definitely pick up if you play around with this game. Once we have picked out our civics, it's time to pick our authority, and that basically means some little fluff content in the game, but also some modifiers. We have democratic, we've got oligarchic, we've got like a dictatorial, and we got imperial. The two on the right here means that we can get one more edict in the game, which is rather useful, and the ones on the left means that we have to deal with elections, but their edict cost has been reduced. These are brand new in the 2.7 update. I've been waiting for this for a while because up till now authority didn't really matter except for some small missions that you can get in the game just to give you additional unity. Was it worth it in the past? No, it was not. Now, however, it is, and of course if you're a role player, you want to play as the Imperial House of Kavazia, then yeah, you can totally go with this. This is totally possible. Or you want to play as a dictator? Totally possible. Also, please be aware that there are rules to secession here as well. Democrats, they need to have elections, and well, dictatorials, yeah, the dictatorials have an election when the ruler dies, and imperial, they have a successor. Can you influence these successors? No, not really. Unless there is an election, there is no way to actually do anything about successors whatsoever. Sure, there is a screen where you can spend 50 influence and say, okay, I want to have this leader, please, and then there's a chance that it may not even be the case. So please be aware of that. In this particular case, we're just going to go with, yeah, let's go with a dictatorial state, which is pretty nice. However, there is one important thing here that you should probably keep an eye on. Now, of course, there's also a special authority available called Corporate. It is only available if you have Megacorp, and they come with their own civics, each with their own cool bonuses, and they are very much focused on the joys of making money, or trade specifically. In addition to that, you can also go with Criminal Heritage, which means that you can get special buildings in the game, different from these ones over here as well, which is kind of cool. Criminal Heritage was promoted as to be pretty awesome, but then it turned out not to be, but it should be fixed since then. But yeah, please be aware of that. And finally, there is this button in the middle here called Gestalt Consciousness. Gestalt Consciousness opens up the doors towards the wonders of the hive mind and, of course, the machine intelligence. They are not guided by ethics whatsoever, which means that you can do whatever you want. They play in their own styles, and, well, machine intelligence are part of Synthetic Dawn, and hive minds are part of the joys of Utopia. And they all, like I mentioned, they all have their own civics, etc., and they all play in a very unique way. So make sure you go and check those out if you have the time, or the expansions as well. Machine intelligence in particular are pretty powerful, but we're gonna go ahead and actually not play as them for now, and actually go ahead and pick what we want here. So that is a technocracy as well as a diplocore. Wow, we are so boring today. Diplocore is so good though. Oof. So good, and we're a democracy as well. Then advisor voices. It really depends on which expansions you have here. Depending on, you know, which expansion you have, you can have different voices. The original, of course.
This pre-recorded message is triggered in the event that your VIA unit has suffered a critical degradation of its ethical constraints matrix.
Yeah, exactly. So we got the original one right here that comes with vanilla, and there's a whole bunch more. I particularly like the Slick Cooperation one.
Our goal is to create
Actually, no, it's a ruthless conglomerate. My apologies.
Around a hopeless cycle of repetition where we sell you the empty promise of happiness and fulfillment, and unfulfilled as ever, you still come back for more.
And of course, for those of you who want to be the communist spaceman.
The springs of cooperation flow most abundant. Those who need will receive.
So
those who make will make wonders.
Damn it, Space Lemon, stop talking. Okay, so, does any of this stuff matter? No, it doesn't. It's purely fluff. It just creates the setting for you to play in. However, you can change this in-game whenever you want on the government screen anyway, so we're just going to stick with the worker for now. Empire name, just hit the dice or whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Then there's, of course, the most important thing in the game, the flag. The flag, of course, means that, you know, the bigger the flag on the map, the more important you are. I think that was relatively straightforward. And we've got all of these cool little flags that we can use. I'm particularly keen on the Legion one, because I do like these. And, of course, you can give them all of these cool colors and secondary colors. My lord, what would you do without all this stuff? Oh my god, it is so pretty. You can even make it hot pink. That's awesome. The next is the ship appearance. Does this matter? No, it does not impact the game in any way, shape, or form, except for making guns look awesome on humanoid ships. And of course, lithoid ships as well. They look quite good too. But all the other ones that come with vanilla are awesome, and there's tons of them on the Steam Workshop for you to download. I do highly recommend it. Machine ships, because, oof, machine ships. It's good stuff. Finally, there's the ruler. Does this stuff matter? No, not really. They don't have any traits or anything like that. We can set the sex of the ruler, whether or not they're male or female. We can put them in different rooms. I guess that's cool. Yeah, that's all. It's literally window dressing. We can change the hairstyle on our dwarves. Every single species has different hairstyles, so that's nice. We can even put them in different clothing. How exciting! And once we've decided what we want here, we're gonna just hit the save button, and then we hit back. Why do we hit back? Well, because we clearly don't want to play with this species. We want to encounter this species. So we're just going to go over here to the Vegetarian Union, click on the tiny flying bird over here that appears to be on fire, and set this to Empire Spawn Force, because it means whenever we're playing, these guys will spawn. And that basically means that you can set up a game and basically say, okay, only 16 empires spawn on this map. I've created 16 empires, and it's guaranteed for them to spawn. In the meantime, though, I'm going to continue playing with Patrons of the Void because, oh my lord, Void Dwellers is so good. Thank you so much for watching. I want to thank my patrons for making this video possible. If you have any questions regarding creating your own species as well as your own empires, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you're one of those players that has played over 2,000 hours and you're just thinking by yourself, hey Spec, you totally missed something really important and you should totally address this, then feel free to comment down below as well. And even if you know, let me know what you had for breakfast. I'm curious. I'm really curious. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and go and check out one of these videos that are on the screen right now, because you will learn. And each other.